Without warning, without promotion, without a single leaked track, Beyoncé Knowles Carter appeared on television screens across America. For the next 65 minutes, the world watched as the biggest pop star on the planet did something unprecedented. She turned her pain into art, her trauma into triumph, and her marriage into a cultural manifesto. The album was recorded between June 2014 and July 2015 across 11 studios in the United States. But what emerged wasn't just music. It was a visual album, a short film, a poetry collection, and a political statement all rolled into one explosive package called Lemonade. The album debuted at number 1 on the US Billboard 200, earning 653,000 album equivalent units, including 485,000 copies in its first week of sales. It was the best-selling album worldwide of 2016, according to the International Federation of the Phonographic Industry, IFPI, with 2.5 million copies sold. At the 2017 Grammy Awards, Adele broke her Album of the Year trophy in half during her acceptance speech, telling Beyoncé through tears, "I can't possibly accept this award. My artist of my life is Beyoncé. This album was so monumental." But the Grammys controversy was just one chapter in a story that would reshape music, challenge cultural narratives about black womanhood, and force America to confront uncomfortable truths about infidelity, racism, and redemption. This is the story of how Beyoncé created her masterpiece, and then watched it spark a revolution she never fully intended. Welcome to the Sound Vault. Every album has a story. This is Beyoncé's. To understand Lemonade, you have to understand May 5, 2014. The Metropolitan Museum of Art Gala, fashion's biggest night. Beyoncé, Jay-Z, and her sister Solange Knowles step into an elevator at New York's Standard Hotel after the event. Security camera footage would later leak showing Solange violently attacking Jay-Z in the elevator while Beyoncé stood by, seemingly doing nothing to stop it. The internet exploded with speculation. What had happened? Why was Solange so angry? And why didn't Beyoncé intervene? The incident became a turning point, fueling rumors that had swirled around Beyoncé and Jay-Z's marriage for years. In a 2017 interview with the New York Times Magazine, Jay-Z admitted that he cheated on Beyoncé, stating, "So even with women, you're gonna shut down emotionally so you can't connect. In my case, like, it's deep. And then all the things happen from there. Infidelity." But in 2014, neither Beyoncé nor Jay-Z said a word publicly. Instead, they began using their art almost like a therapy session, starting work on what would eventually become 2 separate albums addressing the infidelity from both perspectives. Stuart White, who would become Beyoncé's full-time engineer for the project, recalled, "We started in August 2014 at the record plant in Los Angeles. We were there for a month and had booked every single room. Producers were everywhere writing songs. The team then took a break and later went to Paris for 45 days. They stayed in a hotel and set up 2 studios in 2 different hotel rooms, one for Beyoncé and one for Jay-Z." Jay-Z later described how he and Beyoncé were using our art almost like a therapy session. "And we started making music together. And then the music she was making at that time was further along. So her album came out as opposed to the joint album that we were working on. The music Beyoncé was creating in those hotel rooms would become Lemonade. But at that moment, nobody knew she was crafting one of the most important albums of the decade." Beyoncé conceived Lemonade as a concept album that explores the black female experience in the United States, allegorized as a personal journey through marital betrayal and healing, and structured as a song cycle based on the Kubler-Ross model. The 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Beyoncé had the idea to write each song corresponding to the 11 chapters that can be seen in the Lemonade film, and posted mood boards around the studio representing each chapter to provide direction to her collaborators. The chapters would be titled Intuition, Denial, Anger, Apathy, Emptiness, Accountability, Reformation, Forgiveness, Resurrection, Hope, and Redemption. Beyoncé, famously controlling and tight-lipped about her creative process, oversaw a cast of nearly 100 collaborators, from Jack White and Diplo to dozens of unknown producers and songwriters. Producer Johnny Coffer, who co-wrote Freedom, explained, "Beyoncé is really involved at all stages. She runs the show and will say what she likes and doesn't like and is always making suggestions. She knows exactly how she wants it to sound and how to get there." Stuart White set up studios in various locations. "After that, we took a break, then went to Paris for 45 days, where we lived in a hotel and set up 2 studios in 2 different hotel rooms. After the new year, we went back to LA to be in the sunshine. So we set up a studio in the movie theater at her house." White recalled the intense work schedule. "I lived in a hotel close by her house for a year, and every day they'd text me early in the morning asking me to arrive at a specific time. We would sometimes start as early as 8 o'clock. She's a mother, and if her baby is up at 7, she's ready to start work at 8. The collaborators ranged from established stars to complete unknowns, each bringing a unique piece to Beyoncé's puzzle. Hold Up perfectly illustrates how Lemonade came together, a musical collage built from unexpected pieces. The song originated with a tweet sent in 2011 by Vampire Weeknd frontman Ezra Koenig that was itself a reworking of a lyric from the Yeah Yeah Yeah's 2003 song, Maps. Later, he wrote lyrics based on that tweet during a studio session with Diplo and incorporated a loop of the 1963 Andy Williams song, Can't Get Used to Losing You. Josh Tillman, known as Father John Misty, provided lyrics and a melody that became the first verse, and British songwriter Menek added the bridge. When Menek met Beyoncé, the singer already had the idea for each song to correspond to a different title card in the film. She told me, "This is the direction I want the lyrics to go," he recalled. James Blake, who contributed to 2 tracks, remembered meeting Beyoncé. "I was sitting at the piano when I met her. She was just lovely. I came up with something to go with an idea she had. I just embellished her melody. I think the idea was to use some of her lyrics, but I didn't realize that. I misunderstood and did something entirely different from what she wanted. But it didn't matter, because she really liked it. Blue Ivy was there too, which was nice. She was singing along to the song." For Don't Hurt Yourself, Beyoncé collaborated with rock legend Jack White. White later described how she took just sort of a sketch of a lyrical outline and turned it into the most bodacious, vicious, incredible song. The song samples Led Zeppelin's When the Levee Breaks, adding raw rock energy to Beyoncé's fury. Freedom came together through producer Johnny Coffer. "She heard some stuff I'd been working on and asked us all to come to LA to jam. She asked us to write more stuff and sent us ideas which inspired us to write Freedom." The beat contains samples of 2 Alan Lomax field recordings from the 1940s and 50s, archival recordings of black prisoners singing at Mississippi State Penitentiary. This connection to black history and suffering would become one of the album's most powerful elements. Kendrick Lamar, fresh off his critically acclaimed To Pimp a Butterfly, added a verse to Freedom that transformed it into an anthem. For Sandcastles, co-writer Malik Youssef explained, "I had some leftover components in my brain, and that was the melody, subject, and the words. So I got down with Vince Berry and developed it, and then further developed it with Midian, and it became something that Beyoncé wanted to put her touches on. She wanted to come in and structure it the way she saw fit as an artist." One of Lemonade's most striking elements was the poetry woven throughout the visual album, spoken by Beyoncé between songs. The poetry was written by Warsan Shire, a Somali-British poet who graduated from London Metropolitan University in 2010. She had become London's first young poet laureate in 2013 at age 25. Shire's work focuses on refugees, immigrants, violence against women, and the African diaspora. One of her most famous lines, "You have to understand that no one puts their children in a boat unless the water is safer than land." In the production credits for Lemonade, Shire is credited as film adaptation and poetry. Her poems including For Women Who Are Difficult to Love, The Unbearable Weight of Staying, The End of the Relationship, and Nail Technician as Palm Reader served as interludes between songs. The words Beyoncé speaks, "I tried to change, closed my mouth more, tried to be softer, prettier, less awake," belong to Shire, giving voice to the internal struggle of women trying to reshape themselves to save relationships. When Lemonade was released, Shire broke her silence on Twitter, tweeting, "Yosra, I hope you're proud of us," a reference to Yosra Elisawi, a friend and Beyoncé's tour photographer, who had passed away from cancer in 2014. The collaboration elevated Lemonade from a personal album about infidelity to a universal meditation on black womanhood, pain, and resilience. On February 6, 2016, Beyoncé released Formation for free on the music streaming service Tidal and an accompanying music video on her official YouTube account. The song, produced by Mike Will Made It, was unlike anything Beyoncé had released before. Thumping with the bounce beat of New Orleans hip-hop, the song features Beyoncé singing about Southern heritage, identity, self-love, and hot sauce. Backed by visuals including plantation houses and a sinking police cruiser in a flooded post-Katrina landscape, Beyoncé delivered the heaviest, most politically saturated expression of her career to date, alluding to police brutality, gender, culture, class, and history. One day later, February 7, 2016, came Super Bowl 50. Beyoncé performed at the halftime show alongside Coldplay and Bruno Mars. Her dancers, dressed in homage to the Black Panthers, stomped and strutted lines from Formation before joining for a feel-good Uptown Funk dance-off. In a move only the biggest pop star on the planet could pull off, Beyoncé had just debuted her brand new song to the largest television audience of the year and unequivocally stole the show. Immediately after the performance, a commercial aired announcing the Formation World Tour, which would kick off in Miami on April 27th, with pre-sales going on sale just 2 days after the announcement on February 9, 2016. The performance sparked controversy. The performance sparked controversy due to its perceived allusions to the Black Panther Party on its 50th anniversary, as the NFL prohibits political statements during its events. A group of protesters planned to stage an anti-Beyoncé rally outside of the NFL's headquarters in New York City. However, the planned rally was met with 0 protesters, and instead dozens of Beyoncé supporters who held a counter-protest. Beyoncé had fired the first shot. Now the world was waiting for the album. April 16, 2016, Beyoncé released a cryptic teaser for a project titled Lemonade. April 23, 2016, 9 p.m. Eastern, HBO premiered Lemonade as an hour-long special. 788,000 viewers tuned in live to watch, according to the network. Shortly after the HBO special aired, the album became available to stream exclusively on Tidal. Sources told Billboard that Tidal would have the streaming exclusive in perpetuity, suggesting that the album would never be available to stream via competitors like Spotify and Apple Music. Some 18 hours later, Lemonade was available for purchase in the Tidal digital store for $17.99, a package that included the 12 songs, videos, and the full HBO special. By early Monday, iTunes and Amazon also had the album, ending Tidal's download exclusive. The album wouldn't become available on all streaming platforms until April 23, 2019, exactly 3 years later. The strategy worked. Tidal's reliance on high-profile exclusives tripled its number of subscribers worldwide between September 2015 and March 2016 to 3 million, according to the company. But it was the content, not the strategy, that captivated the world. Within hours of Lemonade's release, the internet was ablaze with one question: who is Becky with the good hair? The line came from Sorry, where Beyoncé sings about her unfaithful partner. He only want me when I'm not there. He better call Becky with the good hair. Hours after Lemonade's release, fashion designer Rachel Roy, the ex-wife of Jay-Z's former friend and business partner Damon Dash, posted a message on Instagram: "Good hair don't care, but we will take good lighting for selfies or self-truths always." Many Beyoncé fans angrily posted to Roy's social media accounts using bee and lemon emojis. Roy's Wikipedia was listed as being semi-protected due to vandalism. Rita Ora was also caught in the speculation. Years later, Ora revealed, "I was actually genuinely upset, because that's my big sister, protector, and she took it upon herself to look after me. When we saw each other at the Met Gala, we took a selfie and it was gone, because there was never anything there in the first place." The media's obsession with identifying Becky revealed deeper issues. As one cultural critic noted, blaming the other woman and maybe even oneself is a common knee-jerk reaction. But that doesn't make it right. And in this case, Becky isn't the problem. Many came to understand that Becky isn't necessarily one particular woman, but rather a metaphor for an extramarital affair. An idea of a woman whose good hair underscore the racially tinged hierarchy that has affected black women. Beyond the infidelity narrative, Lemonade became a powerful statement on black womanhood in America. The visual album featured Serena Williams, Zendaya, Amandla Stenberg, Quvenzhané Wallis, Winnie Harlow, ballerina Michaela de Prince, and most poignantly, the mothers of Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, and Eric Garner. Sabrina Fulton, Leslie McSpadden, and Gwen Carr appeared holding pictures of their deceased sons. In the film, these brave but grieving women are dressed in traditional African fineries, holding pictures of their deceased sons. Their glorified pain appears as a testimony to the racism that still pervades the United States' social and political life. Critic Miriam Bale of Billboard called Lemonade a revolutionary work of black feminism. Later in the visual album, accepting an award, Beyoncé said her work seeks to confront issues that make us uncomfortable. "It's important to me to show images to my children that reflect their beauty." The album explores a variety of genres including R&B, rock, country, soul, blues, hip-hop, jazz, reggae, pop, gospel, and funk, demonstrating that these supposedly white genres have deep roots in African-American musical tradition. Melissa Harris Perry of Time magazine said that Beyoncé publicly embraced explicitly feminist blackness at a politically risky moment. Since its release, the album has spawned a large syllabus of literature and academic studies. The University of Texas at San Antonio offered a course on the album. 4 days after the release, on April 27, 2016, Beyoncé embarked on the Formation World Tour at Marlins Park in Miami, Florida. It was her first solo all-stadium tour and the first ever all-stadium tour by a female artist. The stage featured a 60-foot-tall rotating LED cuboid referred to as the monolith, designed by S. Devlin. The rotations of the box were said to represent a new chapter of the show, in similar fashion to the Lemonade album. The box takes approximately 4 minutes to achieve one rotation. The stage also featured a treadmill runway and a secondary stage that stores and produces 2,000 gallons of water. The inspiration for the water was inspired by the song Forward, as the song's message is described as a turning point from anger to forgiveness. The tour concluded on October 7, 2016, at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. The numbers were staggering. Following the final leg, the tour's total gross revenue reached $256,084,556, with total attendance topping out at 2,242,099. Chris Hunt, writing for ticket merchant AXS, reported that the Formation World Tour was one of the top 20 highest-grossing tours of all time. He also noted that within the same top 20, the tour had the fewest shows. The Formation World Tour won Tour of the Year at the 2016 American Music Awards, was included in Rolling Stone's 50 Greatest Concerts of the Last 50 Years list in 2017, and was named the Best Tour of the Decade, 2010s, by Consequence of Sound. February 12, 2017, the 59th Annual Grammy Awards. Staples Center, Los Angeles. Lemonade received 9 Grammy nominations, including Album of the Year, Record of the Year, and Song of the Year. The competition was stiff. Adele's 25, Drake's Views, Justin Bieber's Purpose, and Sturgill Simpson's A Sailor's Guide to Earth. Adele's 25 had unprecedented sales and notched multiple big radio hits. But where Adele fell relatively short was critical acclaim, with Lemonade being not only the most acclaimed album of the year, but one of the most praised of all time. Beyoncé performed while pregnant with twins. Delivering a powerful, elaborate performance celebrating motherhood and African goddess imagery. Then came the moment. Album of the Year. Adele won. During her acceptance speech, an emotional Adele said, "I can't possibly accept this award, and I'm very humbled and I'm very grateful and gracious, but my artist of my life is Beyoncé. This album was so monumental and so well thought out and so beautiful and soul-bearing." Beyoncé teared up listening to Adele's speech and appeared to mouth, "I love you." Adele accidentally broke her Grammy trophy moments after receiving it. Years later, Adele revealed what she told Beyoncé privately backstage. "I just said to her the way that the Grammys works and the people who control it at the very, very top. They don't know what a visual album is. They don't want to support the way that she's moving things forward with her releases and the things that she's talking about." Adele explained why she believed Lemonade deserved to win. "For my friends who are women of color, it was such a huge acknowledgement for them, of the sort of undermined grief that they go through. For her to nail that on the head and also bring in the entire globe? I was like, this album is my album, she just knows what I'm going through. That album was not written for me. But yet I could still feel like, this is the biggest gift." The loss spoke to a troubling trend. The Grammys consistently undervalues artists operating in R&B and hip-hop, particularly if those artists are black. Music scholar John Villanova pointed out, "In the last 10 years, there have been 17 non-white artists nominated for the Grammy Award for Album of the Year. Of those 17, the only winner was Herbie Hancock in 2008. His album was a collection of covers of songs by the white folk artist Joni Mitchell." Beyoncé left the 2017 Grammys with 2 awards, Best Urban Contemporary Album for Lemonade and Best Music Video for Formation, but Album of the Year eluded her once again. Lemonade never received a proper follow-up solo album from Beyoncé, but its impact reverberates through music and culture to this day. On Rolling Stone's 500 Greatest Albums of All Time list, Lemonade was placed at number 32. The Quietus named the project at number 9 on their list of the top 100 albums of the publication's existence. Consequence of Sound named Lemonade the 18th greatest album of all time. In 2017, the album was ranked at number 6 on NPR's list of the 150 greatest albums made by women. The album's influence extends beyond critical acclaim. Megan Carpentier of The Guardian called it a pop culture phenomenon and wrote, "It is not an exaggeration to say that there is no other living musical artist who could ignite such a broad and unavoidable conversation just by releasing a new album." The film Lemonade won a Peabody Award in 2017, one of broadcasting's most prestigious honors, recognizing stories that matter. The album's commercial success was equally impressive. It has since been certified 4 times platinum by the Recording Industry Association of America, RIAA. But perhaps most significantly, Lemonade changed what was possible in popular music. It proved that a visual album could be high art. It showed that deeply personal, politically charged work could be commercially successful. It demonstrated that black female rage, pain, and joy deserve to be centered, celebrated, and preserved. 14 months after Lemonade, Jay-Z released his own response, 444. On the title track, Jay-Z apologized directly. "I apologize, often womanized, took for my child to be born to see through a woman's eyes." He worried about what his children would think. "And if my children knew, I don't even know what I would do. If they ain't look at me the same, I would probably die with all the shame." On Family Feud, Jay-Z addressed Becky directly. "Yeah, I'll fuck up a good thing if you let me alone, Becky." In a 2018 interview with David Letterman, Jay-Z opened up about the work required to save their marriage. "You know, most people walk away. The hardest thing is seeing pain on someone's face that you caused and then have to deal with yourself. So, most people don't want to do that. You don't want to look inside yourself." He explained that many men don't have emotional cues from childhood to help them deal with relationships as adults. "I want to have the emotional tools that it takes to keep my family together," he said. Beyoncé and Jay-Z stayed together. They renewed their commitment. They had twins, Rumi and Sir Carter, in June 2017. In 2018, they released a joint album, Everything Is Love, and embarked on the On the Run 2 tour together. The story that Lemonade told, of betrayal, rage, and eventual reconciliation, turned out to be true. But the album's significance extends far beyond one marriage. The story of Lemonade is the story of an artist at the peak of her powers, choosing vulnerability over perfection, truth over image, and revolution over safety. The album title was inspired by Jay-Z's grandmother, Hattie White. At the end of the song Freedom, an audio recording of Hattie speaking at her 90th birthday party plays. "I had my ups and downs, but I always find the inner strength to pull myself up. I was served lemons, but I made lemonade." That metaphor, turning pain into power, bitterness into something sweet, became the defining statement of Beyoncé's career. But Lemonade also exposed uncomfortable truths about the music industry and American culture. The Grammy loss to Adele, however graciously handled by both artists, revealed the Recording Academy's persistent unwillingness to crown black artists, making explicitly black music with its highest honor. The pattern is undeniable. When black artists win Album of the Year, it's often for work that white audiences find palatable or unthreatening. When they create art that centers black experience, black pain, black joy, they are relegated to genre categories. The obsession with Becky with the good hair revealed another truth: society's discomfort with female rage. Critics noted that the media's fixation on identifying the other woman deflected from the real conversation about infidelity, power dynamics in relationships, and the specific ways black women navigate betrayal. And the album's commercial strategy, the Tidal exclusivity, the surprise release, the refusal to play by traditional industry rules, demonstrated that Beyoncé had achieved a level of power few artists ever reach. She could make her own rules, and the world would follow. Stuart White, who mixed the album, reflected on the experience. "Working on Lemonade was the highlight of my career. The amount of love and care that went into every single aspect of that project, it was unlike anything I'd ever been part of." Jack White said of Beyoncé, "She's got that incredible voice, she's an amazing performer, and she's super intelligent. She turned a sketch into something monumental." 7 years after its release, Lemonade remains Beyoncé's defining artistic statement. It's the album where she stopped being just a pop star and became a cultural force, a voice for black women, a champion of vulnerability, a master of visual storytelling. The album that almost destroyed her marriage became the one that saved it. The album the Grammys couldn't honor became one of the most acclaimed works of the 21st century. The personal pain she transformed into art resonated with millions who found their own stories reflected in her Lemonade. In 2016, Beyoncé Knowles Carter had a choice: stay silent about her pain or risk everything by telling the truth. She chose the truth, and in doing so, she created something timeless. As music critic Julian Escobedo Shepherd wrote, "Lemonade is a triumph not just because it's a visual masterpiece, but because it's a meditation on the black female experience, on love, betrayal, grief, rage, and ultimately, redemption." 5 Grammys she didn't win. 1 cultural revolution she sparked anyway. This has been the Sound Vault. Every album has a story. And Beyoncé's story? It turned lemons into lemonade and changed music forever.